Shouldn't wear heels. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, you came in a nice, sweet spot of our time together. Yes. So we're beginning this month newly, as we do each month. The theme this month I wanted to speak about is always reflective of my own experience and thought process of what's going on in me as I merge and become more integrated. My humanity and my divinity is one thing. So I wanted to talk about dealing with paradox, those things that seem like they're at odds with each other or opposite ends of the spectrum, or more importantly, the places within us where we feel divided, perhaps against ourselves. Because wherever there is a division, we're thinking with this concept that it is either or. You know, God is this, I am that. God is greater, I am lesser. I am not where I could be, should be, want to be in life. I am not who I want to be in life. As if there's always something other than what is. Now, that's the cosmic joke, I guess, because we live in a physical world. And our eyes, except the third eye, of course, but our other two eyes, you know, are always pointed out. And it's the first thing we notice, is that which we see or identify with our senses. Right? And we get not only attached, we get excited, or we get repulsed. We become fearful, or we become more open and loving, depending on how we identify what we perceive. Are we one with that, or are we separate from that? And although it doesn't feel like a joke, sometimes it feels like a very deep and painful reality. Nevertheless, we make it up. You know, mystics would never be caught saying that the physical reality is an illusion. They may say we live in a dream state, but they wouldn't say the physical reality, or the physical realm, or the physical world, should I say, is an illusion, because if they say it's an illusion, then they're saying there's something else, which is a reality. And there we have duality. So the metaphysical teaching, the science of mind, is constantly teaching us so we can hear it at deeper and deeper levels, meaning we actually start thinking from this idea that there is only one thing going on. You might want to call it God, you might want to call it love, you might want to call it me. Because really there is no separation from the nature that has created life and life itself, the nature of life itself. Now, this is not, this is an interesting subject, because in the face of me wanting not to talk much anymore, and not to be very intellectual anymore, I personally want a direct experience of the sacred as me in me, just as it is. That's where I am in my life. Where are you in your life? Does that resonate with you? I think it has nothing to do with age. Although sometimes I think, why did it take me so long? But you know, I've been on the path to it, and I've been more conscious about it and excited about it, and now I'm at a place in it that says, I have nothing. I have lots to give, but I have nothing to say. Does that make sense? Lots to give, but nothing to say. Because no one needs to hear or learn anything. They just need to be held. It's like my job is to hold and embrace life, to allow it to be what it is. in my own mind, in my own speech, in my own actions and behaviors, so that I become congruent with the relative perfection. Now, in order to become congruent, I need to be able, this is the intellectual part. I know. Stay with me, Diane. Because I need you to stay with me so I can stay with myself. Or I'm just going to sit over here any moment. So in order to be congruent, I have to be able to see all sides of everything. At least open myself up to welcome all possibility and all potential in the physical realm. Which means, as Dr. Ernest Holmes said, before something and against nothing. Now, I used to take that literally. So I can be for Susan and not against her. This is an object, right? I perceive her, so I'm objectifying her. But I think Holmes meant before something. Before it. Be with it. Stand in it. Before something. That's something that exists everywhere. The same equally always. And against no thing. Do not let the thing and its diversity or its energy detract you or distract you from the presence, the all-presence, and power of that creative intelligence that went before the thing existed. Have you ever worked really hard at something and were fearful but went into some kind of competition, some kind of contest? Patty would know this one with her voice probably. And that's kind of the example I wanted to give. There was once the young girl who practiced and wanted to enter this singing competition. So the day came and she finally got there and she's standing in the wings. And she's like they draw and she's like number 10. Well, that's painful. There's only 12 contestants, right? So she watches and listens and people are good. They're good and they're getting applause. And as they get applause, you know what she's thinking. What am I doing here? Or I'm not that good. Or, oh my God, are they going to applaud for me? Or that little bit of doubt we all carry within ourselves. We don't quite believe in ourselves enough sometimes. And certainly that girl was having that experience. Now it comes her time. They call her name. She walks out on the stage, the big light, music starts. She sings as she rehearsed and felt she was ready in that way. And lo and behold, she gets the biggest applause of everyone. And she wins. Now, when she was standing in the wings, that was not her conscious reality. But something within her knew that there was something about her, some potential, that made her enter that contest. That showed up once again when she wasn't in the wings watching and observing, but when she put herself in the middle of the creative act or expression. It came, it was there, it's always there. What that tells me about paradox is that as long as we're standing on the outside looking in, questioning our own reality or our own worth or our own existence or questioning anything, we're not present with the actual experience of life. We're observing it. How many have gone through life feeling the old metaphor I always use because of my era is, face up to the glass looking in the candy store window, but not able to actually be in and take a piece of candy and eat it. I'm always one step away, I used to feel, from the actual experience and the exhilaration of that direct experience And that's what I mean about nothing to say anymore, nothing to learn. For me, embracing the paradox is an extremely important discussion because it allows us to merge ourselves as the observer and the witness and the experience of observing. We are subjective to all experience. We are subjective to our thoughts, which create our experience. And we're also the one who witnesses it. There's not a problem here to fix. There's just something to know when we feel divided, or when we feel afraid, or when we feel compulsive, or desirous, or attached, or when we think thoughts about ourselves like, I can't focus on anything else but them. I can't do the rest of my life. How come I can only do this and everything else seems to fall apart? How come I'm really great at saving money in the bank and yet I have cold after cold after cold, or I have no motivation? How come there seems to be this imbalance and incongruity in my life? Right? So if you peel it back, peel it back, peel it back, peel it back, peel it back to the premise that Science of Mind teaches, which is unity and wholeness. And you start back at the drawing board, which we continually do, and clear and settle and still and breathe. It happens every spring, doesn't it? We get rid of all the crud on the ground and the leaves and the stuff that's stuck to everything and the cobwebs and the hoarding. Some people, I clean out closets and cupboards and all sorts of things. Because we want what do we want? We want newness, freshness. And so coming back to the principle of unity and no separation is that fresh start. You sang about it. Patty's words said, they were, come back to the fresh, what did you say? A new start.
Fresh place to start.
A fresh place to start. Yeah. And so one of the keys in coming back to this fresh place to start is embracing the seeming paradoxes, the two poles. We don't have to manage poles or polarities. We find our way somewhere in the middle because we are a part of everything and everything is a part of us. We don't need to, but we're always seeming like the tipping point because we're thinking about it because we were born the observer and that which experiences the experience. And that's the journey. That's the human journey. You know, I keep saying to myself, there's no sense in trying to fix it or change it. Just embrace it as what it is. In order to do that and transcend wherever we feel we get stuck and we're static in our own life, in our decisions or our quest for a purpose or meaning, or in a relationship or in a career, wherever we feel we're stuck, the deal is we need to keep moving. And the principle says that it's within us to begin. Everything is here we need. And so we need to start giving it, moving the energy, and free it. Keep allowing ourselves to be in motion in the evolution of our own conscious awareness of who we truly are. And we can't know it unless we can experience it. We experience it by being it. Right? So we need to transcend these limited ideas that we have that keep us stuck by including this that we notice, that we are stuck. Does that make sense? It means embrace wherever we are in order to be able to move through it, right? Transcend can be a little deceiving. It's like above. Above means, for me, to give a broader view, an overarching perspective, to expand our perspective. Transcend it, the condition, or the thought, or the experience, by including it as relative perfection. Because God, or that which is the nature of all, is right where you are. It is you, and you have created the condition. Because the condition only exists because of the perception. Would you agree? Your perception is yours. The perception is yours. And if you move into the perception, which is what Dr. Holmes says, the only place which is behind perception, which is the deeper belief or the law of your being that creates that perception, is the only place you can change the perception. Once you've changed the perception, you've changed the relationship with the thing. Therein lies freedom. I know that's intellectual. How do you make this understanding, which all of you have right here, I know you have it right now, how do you move it into your life? How do you move it into your life where you don't feel like there's an effort and a struggle of constantly being pulled forward, pushed back, feeling no confidence over here, feeling extremely almost overconfident over here? How do you use this thing that you know so well and move it into your life in a way that brings you what you do seek? Which is not separation from that kind of experience I just described, but it is a deeper knowing, a connection with the deeper knowingness of that peace and that nature of who you truly are as you are in it. I watched a fabulous, thank you for liking it, on the Facebook. I'm getting used to this. It was a video, it was a documentary done by Robert Redford, and it was a video bringing together Dave Chappelle, who I'd never heard of in my life before, and Maya Angelou. And, it started with Dave being very excited because he was the pop culture figure, and of course she was the iconoclast, and that's what it was called, iconoclasts. Iconoclasts, that which breaks down, breaks down this overriding belief system or figure or form, that which breaks it down. And Maya Angelou, like Martin Luther King and all those people, break down the race consciousness, the social norm, the status quo. They create the friction. They make the question. And Dave was in his limo, and he was going, I don't really know. He said, I'm really excited. I'm a little intimidated, to sit in front of Maya Angelou. I don't really know her well or her story, but I know, this is going to be a great experience. And he gets there, and you can see he's a little intimidated, and there's this smile, this welcoming, open smile on her face. And you look into her eyes, and you see the entire world. And you see more than that, you feel her reverence and her humility for all that's gone before her and all that is and all that she is. She is congruent. There's something there within her. It's on. See if you can find it. It is fabulous. And she said a few things I wanted to share with you because I felt it had to do with paradox. First of all, she cited, she was asked to do a cameo role in some documentary, and she was in her trailer, and she was disturbed because there was people fighting outside the trailer. So she opened the door, and she saw two individuals really coming at each other. And she said, my heart filled, and I just said to them, do you know how important you are? And they kept fighting. They didn't hear her. And then she looked at the one who seemed to be the instigator, and she came down and she came closer to him, and she looked into his eyes and she said, do you know how important you are? Now these were two black men. And they kept fighting. And she said, do you know that our ancestors came together in the formation of a spoon on the slavery ships and lay in their own feces and urine so that you could be here today? Do you know how important you are? And the one man, his eyes, he went back inside and he started to cry. And he was Tupac, the performer. Do you know how important you are? Everything that has gone before us has been a key part. Everything, not just your lineage. Everything for us to evolve in our own experience of our humanity so that we may also contribute to the evolution of all races as one people, as one life, one mind, one heart. She said to Dave, because he was feeling something, and she said to him, be angry. Well, I don't know about being. Be angry, she said. Never stop. Write it, speak it, feel it, dance it, paint it, but don't be bitter. There's a difference.
Or something against it.
Yeah. And that was really freeing for me. I don't know about you, but I always think if I explode or I get mad, then I'm not a good, loving person. Right? How come I can't hold those two? Why, if I express anger, does it mean I'm not a good person? You see how we do it all the time in little things as we go through and move through our day. When they first came together, the first thing they talked about was their process of creativity, right? And Maya, of course, was a writer. She also said a little later on in the video, for 6 years, I didn't speak. I went into myself. I did, and how I communicated was through words. That was her beginning. For 6 years, she was a mute. I won't tell you why. You can watch the video. But he, of course, is like the talking head, right? And he said, my process of creativity is to be with the people. And when I'm with the people, I can create. So a lot of what he does in his comedy routine is ad lib, improv. He looks at people. He knows he can feel them. He works off of them. He integrates. He is all-inclusive. He's engaging. And people love that because they feel like they're part of his creative process. Maya, on the other hand, has a hotel room away from her home. She gets in her car or is driven to this, and she shuts the door, and she has her sacred silence. And she allows rise whatever needs to arise. I don't know what you're thinking right now, but what became very important to me was that contemplative moment when I was listening to these seemingly opposite processes. And it made me emotional. It made me emotional because I don't really connect or could find the words to tell you what my process is, but I deeply feel my process. But I felt in that moment that I have come so far away from my process. And when I heard about that, I felt one with me. I felt close to myself. I felt there was that peace that, oh yeah, that's who I am. How I do life is who I am. So I'm witnessing, I'm observing, I'm listening, and then I have this extreme, profound, subjective experience in my feeling body that creates tears, that creates movement, that creates motion. And this is why this teaching, or the path of metaphysics for me, has brought me to this place where I'm tying myself together. I am bound as one. I'm coming back home, returning to the one, to me. I can hear and hold. I don't have an opinion about his process over her process. I don't need to identify, oh yeah, I'm more like Dave, which is what we'd naturally do, right? Because I love people. I like working with people. I can feel people. I can intuit, as you can. I just need to go into myself and feel what is true for me in the moment. That's how we unify. That's how we embrace paradox. We go into ourselves and we listen so we can come back to our center, which to me is what spiritual living is all about. I'm going to leave you with this one last paradox that I found on the internet, of course. I thought it was quite wonderful. It's known as a Sorites paradox, which means nothing to me, so I don't know why I even told you that. This paradox is deceptively simple. All right? Imagine a heap of sand from which you gradually remove 1 grain of sand at a time. Okay? Do you know this? Okay. Now, you can construct, this is verbatim, you can construct the argument using 2 premises. 1 million grains of sand is a heap of sand. Or, a heap of sand minus 1 grain of sand is still a heap. So 1 million grains of sand constitutes a heap of sand. Or a heap of sand minus 1 grain of sand is still a heap. If you follow that latter premise and repeatedly take 1 grain of sand away from your original heap, then you will eventually end up with a heap with only 1 grain of sand. But it's not possible to have a heap of 1 sand grain. Or is it? But this goes one step further. If you still follow this premise, then it will follow that you can have a heap with absolutely no grains of sand. And it further follows that you can actually have a heap with a negative number of grains. Perfection is not an end. It's a man-made concept about levels or stages. The ideology of perfection is never perfectly defined due to the limited human senses and logic. So perfection will only and ever exist in relative terms. Holmes says that man's mind is ever in contact with omniscience, but his conscious thought does not always know this. Hence, he remains in ignorance of that which he inwardly and subjectively knows, but does not bring to the point of consciousness. Perhaps we should feel that the inner spirit knows, and that because this is true, our objective mind knows as well. What about that? We don't need to go anywhere within ourselves even to find the truth. The truth exists in its essence, in the reality of its omniscience, its omnipotence, and is one in the nature of that. The truth is who we are. Our choice is to enjoy the discovery of this truth uniquely as us. And that is not a paradox. And so it is.
So it is.